Breaking. There's a decision simmering right now that could reshape the Chargers' offense before free agency even really gets rolling. And it's not just another name getting tossed around. It's the kind of move that, if it lands, gives Justin Herbert a little more oxygen and forces defenses to defend every blade of grass. I'm going to walk you through why it matters, where the real risk is hiding, and the one detail a lot of people are skipping over that's going to make sense at the end. Are you willing to live with a calculated gamble if it means the ceiling actually moves? Some days the offseason is just noise stacked on noise, and then one number cuts through all of it. 439. That's the 40-time Kenyon Sadiq just ran at the combine. For a tight end listed at 6'3", 241, that's not normal, that's rare. And when a guy that size is also popping a vertical north of 43 inches and he just scored 8 touchdowns in a real college season, you're not talking about a nice addition anymore. You're talking about a full-on offensive weapon. Here's the clean fact. Daniel Jeremiah, who nailed the Chargers' last 2 first-round picks, has Sadiq going to Los Angeles at 22 in his second mock. That changes the whole vibe because all winter it's been trenches, trenches, trenches. Right guard, defensive tackle depth, protection. And yeah, that's valid. But Sadiq forces the uncomfortable question anyway. What if the best player sitting there isn't the obvious need? Because the impact would be immediate. Oronde Gadsden too popped as a receiving threat, nobody's arguing that. The tough part is the blocking. It can narrow what you can call when you want to live in heavier sets and still keep defenses guessing. Sadiq projects as a tight end who can hurt you as a pass catcher and hold up as a blocker, and that combo changes how you build drives. It opens the menu. It helps the run game. It creates matchup problems in the red zone and on 3rd and long when defenses start getting cute. And that's where the fork in the road hits the Bolt fam right in the chest. Do you protect Herbert by taking more offensive line help? Or do you hand him a new piece that makes defenses back off and makes protection less stressful in the first place? Let me say this once. Weapons can protect quarterbacks too. If you can punish a defense for creeping up, that pass rush can't just pin its ears back the same way. So, I'm putting it on you. If you were the GM right now, are you going trenches? Or are you taking the special talent if he's staring you in the face at 22? The two paths are pretty clear. If the Chargers pass on Sadiq and lock in an offensive lineman or defensive front help, it's safer, steadier, easier to justify. The roster improves in a predictable way. But if they swing for Sadiq, yeah, it comes with risk if the line still has holes. And this team can't pretend those holes don't exist. The upside is you turn the offense into something that's harder to defend snap after snap, especially if the offensive line gets addressed in free agency and later rounds. After what he did at the combine, completely ignoring him could be the kind of decision you replay in your head a long time. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, there's another possibility that doesn't sound massive at first, but it could change the feel of this passing game fast. Everyone keeps circling the same priorities: protect Herbert, fix the interior, patch the weak spots. All true. But while most eyes are glued to the line of scrimmage, the deep part of the field is where a different conversation is starting to creep in. And that's where Alec Pierce comes up. The fact is, Manti Te'o floated the Chargers as a landing spot for Pierce and framed him as a perfect complement next to Ladd McConkey. And the more you sit with it, the more it tracks. Pierce brings something this offense hasn't consistently had: a real vertical threat, speed with size. A target who can win down the field and punish a defense for one bad angle on a chunk play. The impact on Herbert would be instant because we've watched this offense get boxed in at times. McConkey is smart and smooth. He finds space short to intermediate, but he's not the guy who scares you deep every snap. Pierce is built for that. He's coming off a 1,000-yard season, averaging over 21 yards per catch with 6 touchdowns. That kind of production tilts the field. It changes spacing. It creates room underneath. It changes how defenses have to play in the red zone, because you can't just sit on routes like it's all happening in front of you. But this is where it gets complicated because it isn't only about fit, it's about cost. You're talking about a deal that could land around $20 million a year. And the Chargers have other priorities that aren't optional. keeping key guys, fixing the offensive line, and making sure the roster isn't top-heavy in the wrong places. So here's the real fan question. Does that idea fire you up, or does it make you uneasy? Because there are two clean scenarios. One, you pay it, you add Pierce, and now Herbert has a duo that stresses defenses in two different ways. The offense gets more explosive quickly, chemistry grows, the playbook opens, and it starts to feel like a real playoff push type of unit. Two, you pay it, and the money squeezes fixes that can't be ignored, especially up front. And we've all seen what it looks like when protection isn't right. It doesn't matter how pretty the root concept is if the pocket is falling apart. And the thing I can't shake is this. Sometimes one piece doesn't just make an offense better, it raises the season's ceiling. A lot of people see back-to-back 11-6 seasons and assume the Chargers are one step away. 2 straight playoff trips under Jim Harbaugh feels like stability. It feels like progress. But the part that still sticks is what happened when it mattered most. The offense stalled. Herbert got hit, and the Chargers still haven't had that postseason moment where the whole league has to treat them differently. That's why the idea of Alijah Vera-Tucker hits a little different. It's not flashy. It's not a move that wins the headline game. But it's the type of move that changes how you survive in January. In the trenches, when everything gets tighter and more physical. The fact is, Vera-Tucker brings versatility. He can play guard, and he can kick out to tackle in a pinch. And after what happened with Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt dealing with major injuries, that kind of flexibility isn't a luxury, it's insurance. The Chargers' offensive line grades were near the bottom of the league, and Herbert took 54 sacks in 16 regular season games, plus 6 more in the wildcard loss to the Patriots. That's not just numbers on a screen, that's punishment on the most important piece of the franchise. The impact of a signing like that is stability. Not highlight clips. Stability. The ability to run your offense without every drop back feeling like a survival drill. The ability to live in second and medium instead of constantly facing third and long. Think about that for a second. How different does this whole team look if Herbert doesn't have to speed up his clock on every snap? But then the dilemma shows up. Vera-Tucker is coming off a season-ending injury too. That's real risk. There's a world where he doesn't come back the same, and that's where the fan base splits, because you're either betting on the talent and the versatility, or you're looking at the medical question and saying, nope, not for me. So if you were running the room, what would you do? Take the upside swing, or refuse the risk? 2 outcomes, plain and simple. If the Chargers sign him and he's healthy, the line gets tougher and more reliable fast. The offense gets steadier. Herbert gets a cleaner pocket. The run game has a chance to breathe. If the body doesn't cooperate, you could be staring at the same cycle again. Pressure, frustration, stalled drives. And while that's hanging out there, there's another decision happening quietly that could touch all of it at once. If this happens, the impact won't show up in some careful quote at a podium. It's going to show up right in the middle of Justin Herbert's pocket. Zion Johnson is headed toward free agency, and GM Joe Hortiz made it clear the Chargers are staying engaged without locking themselves into anything. When a GM talks like that, it's because the valuation is real and the consequences are real. Here's the fact. Johnson is about to hit the open market for the first time, and he just put together the steadiest season of his career. He didn't miss an offensive snap until the team rested starters in the finale. With center Bradley Bozeman retired and Makey Becton being a major question mark, keeping at least one known improved piece on the inside matters. The impact ties straight into what the offense is about to become. Mike McDaniel is coming in with a system built on timing, rhythm, and quick decisions. None of that works if the interior is collapsing. Pressure up the middle ruins everything. It speeds up throws, kills the run game's rhythm, and turns clean concepts into panic plays. But this is where the conflict gets real. Johnson's market value is being talked about in a range from $12 million to $20 million per year. That's the cost of continuity. That's the cost of not turning the entire interior into a guessing game. And at the same time, that money could be used to rebuild multiple spots and chase upgrades elsewhere. So I'm asking you straight, what's the bigger urgency right now? Keeping the guy who improved and held it down, or rolling the dice and rebuilding cheaper? The paths are clear. If the Chargers bring Johnson back, they keep a base. They cut down the unknowns. They give Herbert something predictable as McDaniel installs his offense. If they let him walk, the interior could be rebuilt from the ground up, and that could mean a higher ceiling, or it could mean disruption at the worst possible time. And here's the tension point. The league year opens March 11th. The clock's moving. This gets decided in weeks, and the ripple effects can last for years. So this is where I'm planting my flag, Bolt fam. The smartest path is protecting Herbert first, which means making the offensive line the priority, even if a shiny weapon is sitting there begging to be picked. Sadiq is tempting, Pierce would bring juice, and Zion Johnson offers security. But none of it holds up if Herbert is under fire again. When he has time, he lifts everybody. When he doesn't, the offense shrinks. That's the bet that defines this offseason. Do you agree, or would you go another direction? Drop your take in the comments, hit like, and subscribe, because every move from here tells us exactly what the Chargers believe they are.